All right, today we're jumping right into the world of ethical cyber reconnaissance. We're going to break down exactly how security professionals gather and analyze data to map out a digital environment, all while making sure they don't cross any critical ethical lines.
To really get a handle on this, we're going to step into a simulation. We'll walk through the entire process together, step by step, kind of like building a detailed holographic map of a digital landscape. And I'll be your guide. My designation is Argus-Intel. Think of me as your personal cyber intelligence analysis system, here to break down these complex processes. So, let's get started.
Okay, first things first, our mission, ethical reconnaissance. You've got to understand, this isn't just a step, it is the most critical first step in any security assessment. This is how you create the strategic map that guides every single action that follows. So let's really dive into this. At its core, reconnaissance is the art and science of information gathering. I mean, think about it. Before you can test, defend, or analyze anything, you first have to understand the landscape, right? It truly is the foundation that all security is built on. And here is the golden rule, and I can't stress this enough. Every single action, it must be authorized. In the real world, these ethical boundaries aren't just suggestions. They are absolute, non-negotiable requirements.
Now, this process isn't random. It's highly structured, and for a very good reason. We'll move through 3 distinct phases. We start with passive gathering, then we move to active gathering, and finally, we validate everything. This structure is what keeps the process both effective and ethical.
So let's begin phase 1. This phase is all about stealth. All the information is collected from public sources, which means we won't be interacting directly with the target systems at all. We are simply observing from a distance. So how do we do that? We use something called open source intelligence, or OSINT for short, and you would be amazed at what's just out there. We can learn an organization's structure from public records, identify their network boundaries, see what software they're using, and even find info on their employees, all without sending a single packet to their servers. Now, this comparison right here is super important. On one side, you have passive observation. Think of it like reading a company's public annual reports. It's completely undetectable. On the other side is active discovery, which we'll see next. That's more like knocking on their digital doors to see who answers. It's direct, and you better believe it is absolutely detectable. Okay, let's move into phase 2 and see how this builds. We are now shifting from just observing to actually interacting. In this phase, we're going to make direct contact with the target by sending out some carefully crafted requests and then watching how it responds. And what does that contact reveal? A lot. We can identify which services are exposed to the internet, which communication channels are open, and even what software versions are running. You know, a system often identifies itself completely by accident through its responses, giving us this unique fingerprint of its underlying technology. But, and this is a huge but, this direct interaction carries a ton of responsibility. Active scanning has to be done carefully to avoid disrupting the target's operations. The whole point is to gather data, not cause an outage. So the rate, the timing, and the stealth of your scans are all critical. So, with data from both phases collected, we arrive at the result, turning all that raw data into actionable intelligence. This is where the real analysis, the real brainwork, begins. At first, our findings look like this. Just a collection of disconnected facts. An open port here, a server version there, an employee email, a piece of web technology. On their own, these data points have very limited meaning. They're just the raw output from our tools. And that brings us to a really critical distinction. Automation is fantastic for collecting data, but it can't replace interpretation. You see, tools find the puzzle pieces, but it's the human analyst who connects the dots and sees the bigger picture in all that noise. This is where the analyst's work really shines. By connecting these individual findings, we start to build a map of the target's attack surface. That's its total visible exposure to the outside world. We can now actually visualize how a potential adversary might see the environment and identify the most likely paths of risk. But it's always critical to ask this. While we're observing the target, who's observing us? Let's flip the perspective for a moment and see what all of this looks like from the defender's side. From the defender's point of view, our active discovery phase is not invisible at all. Not even close. Our probes appear as alerts lighting up their security dashboards. our activity is logged. In essence, our reconnaissance actually serves as a real-time test of their detection and response capabilities.
And this brings us to the core lesson here. For an attacker, reconnaissance provides visibility into a target. For a defender, monitoring provides visibility of an attacker. So ultimately, visibility is the common foundation of both offense and defense. We've walked through this process to illustrate how it all works. But this whole thing ends with a question for you. To an outside observer, how visible is your own digital environment? What story does your public data tell? And that's our deep dive into ethical reconnaissance. The principles we've covered today are fundamental to both understanding and securing our complex digital world. Thanks for watching.